Everybody. Welcome to an online meeting of RBKC's Licensing Subcommittee, and thank you for attending. I am Councillor Dory Schmetterling, and I'll be chairing this meeting. It is being held via Microsoft Teams, and it is also being streamed live on the Council's YouTube channel. The committee for this hearing comprises Councillor Sarah Adden, Councillor Pat Mason, and me. Councillors, could you please introduce yourselves in alphabetical order? Councillor Addenbrook.
Yes, good morning. I'm Sarah Addenbrook, and I represent Abingdon Ward in Kensington.
Thanks. Councillor Mason.
Councillor Pat Mason. I represent Goulburn Ward in RBKC.
Thank you very much. We're joined remotely by Paul Phelan and Laura McGahn from the Council's licensing team. Could you please confirm your attendance, Mr. McGahn? Ms. McGahn, sorry.
Present, Chair.
Hello.
Hello there.
Mr. Phelan. Yeah,
Good
Mr.
morning,
Phelan.
Chair. Present.
Thank you. Our legal officer, Lindsay Lemazurier, please confirm.
Present, Chair.
And also with us is our committee officer, Anne Wright. please say you're here.
Yes, good morning, Chair. I'm here.
Thanks. Ms. Wright will be monitoring all of our connections and help with any technical issues we may have. She is supported by, I think, Yasmin Jama, Hannah Koskela, Golgan, and Gareth Ebenezer. Could you all please confirm your presence, Ms. Jama?
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Koskela?
Chair, it's Anne Wright. Hannah isn't with us this morning. It's just myself, Gareth, and Yasmin.
Right. Well, we know Mr. McColgan is here. Mr. Ebenezer?
Good morning, everybody.
Thank you very much. We've had one objection from a resident who cannot attend, but I wish to reassure her that we shall take into account her written representation. Before we start the hearing for this case, a few ground rules. Please keep your microphones on mute until you're invited to speak, and please make sure mobile phones are on silent. And on that note, I better turn my own one off. Do keep your cameras on when not speaking, if you wish, unless we run into connection problems. Just turn my thing off. Please note that the Microsoft Teams chat function is not monitored, so please do not use it. In addition, this is a public meeting and the chat would not be seen in the live stream. Everyone should have received the procedure for this meeting regarding the use of cameras and how to connect back if you lose connection. The case before us today is to grant a license for Amethyst at 293 Westbourne Grove, London, W11 2QA. Now for declarations of interest. I have no declaration to make. Councillor Addenbrooke?
I have no declaration of interest.
Councillor Mason? Thank you. Councillor Mason?
I have no declaration regarding these premises, Chairman.
Thank you very much. The quorum for this committee is 2, as there is always the possibility that I may lose connection temporarily during the broadcast. I'm nominating Councillor Mason to be appointed as the substitute chair. Members, please confirm whether this nomination is seconded.
I second this nomination.
Thanks very much indeed. I confirm that Councillor Mason has been appointed substitute chair. Thank you. For clarity, I will outline the procedure of the meeting, which, as already mentioned, has been circulated with the papers and are online. First, the licensing officer, Mr. Phelan, will give a brief outline of the application. Then I will ask the applicant's legal advisor, Mr. Jonathan Smith, to present his submission. He will have up to a maximum of 10 minutes to do so. He is joined by his client, Rodrigo Mamana, who may be able to assist members should they have any questions. Please, could you all confirm your attendance? Mr. Smith?
Yes, Councillor, I am here, Jonathan Smith, for the applicant Amethyst Drinks. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you. Mr. Mamana?
Good morning, I'm here. Hello, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Then questions will be asked by members of the committee of the applicant. Then questions may be asked, well, would have been asked by the objector who is not apparently present. Then questions will be asked by members of the committee. Well, I have to leave that out too. There's no objector here, so I can't ask questions. After this, we will ask our legal officer, Mr. Mazurier, to deal with any questions she may have, for example, regarding any conditions. And finally, we will turn to the governance team to see if any issues have been raised that we need to consider. There will be no summing up and the meeting will end, and we will send a summary decision within 5 working days. I'd like to remind everyone that the committee has read the papers, which makes up the main pack, so there is no need to repeat their content. But please do draw our attention to certain points and pages. Ms. Wright will move the document on the screen for us. So let's get going. Leave your cameras on or turn them off if you wish. Mr. Phelan, could you please outline the case for us? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. The application before you today has been submitted by Amethus Drinks PLC for the grant of a premises licence at Amethus, 293 Westbourne Grove, London, W11 2QA. Today's application is for the grant of a premises licence which seeks to sell by retail of alcohol off the premises from 10 a.m. until 11 p.m. Monday to Sunday, and on sales of alcohol from 11 a.m. until 10 p.m. Monday to Sunday, with opening hours between 10 a.m. and 11 p.m. again Monday to Sunday. A full copy of the application can be found at Appendix A, pages 6 to 16 of today's papers. This application did not attract a formal representation from the responsible authorities. However, following discussions between the applicant and police, the applicant agreed to include a condition as part of their operating schedule that would restrict the premises from providing licensable activities during the Sunday and Monday of Notting Hill Carnival, should it take place. At the time this report was written, 2 representations had been received which opposed this application. This did include a representation from Councillor Monica Press. However, Councillor Press has subsequently withdrew her objection on the 28th of May 2021. A summary of the remaining representation can be found on pages 3 to 7, with a copy attached at Appendix C on page 22. Council records indicate that no complaints or temporary event notices have been received in the preceding 24-month period in respect of this premises. It should also be noted that the plans submitted do not identify an outside area as part of the licensed area. That concludes the summary of this application. I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, could you please present your submission? Turn your camera on. It is on. Okay, very good. And you have up to 10 minutes. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, and thanks, Paul, for the brief summary of the application. To stress, the application is for opening and off sales 10 a.m. to 2300 Monday to Sunday, but there is a condition on page 16 of your agenda, councillors, that restricts any on sales to 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. and on sales are only made in respect of alcohol which is supplied as part of a guided masterclass or tasting session, and I will come back to that, councillors. Yes, a condition was agreed with the Metropolitan Police restricting licensable activities on the Sunday and Monday of Notting Hill Carnival. The applicant is Amethus Drinks, which currently has 7 stores open. This, it is hoped, with your blessing, councillors, would be the 8th store, which was hoping to open early August to grant the licence. The stores that are currently open are Bath, Brighton, Leadenhall Market in the City of London, Muswell Hill, Shoreditch, Soho, and most recently an application was approved and granted for an opening of the latest store in South Kensington on Old Brompton Road. I don't know, councillors, if you had a chance to look at the website. A link was provided with the application and was in your pack at page 15, but it's a family company that was established in 1978. It is an importer, distributor and retailer of alcohol, but it's not your everyday mainstream alcohol that they specialise in. They specialise in certain products on an exclusive basis, so it's referred to in the industry, I understand, as having a portfolio. So there are certain wines, for instance, that they source in-house from around the world that only they supply then to the on-trade. They do have the exclusive rights to also distribute certain Japanese, Swedish and English whiskies. There are English whiskies, cognacs, and certain cognacs and Armagnacs, obviously from France, and as I said, a range of wines as well that they source from around the world. They recently added sake, Japanese sake, to their portfolio of products as well. So it's there are some high-end, expensive brands. It's perhaps a more selective, exclusive source of products that they do provide, both to the on-trade through distribution, but they also do provide then a retail service, councillors, to the general public. We did have regard when making the application to your policy, and of course Chapter 12 of your policy deals with off licences, and in particular your concern over any off licences which are open after midnight, which is why the hours are restricted to 2300. And also, of course, you mentioned street drinkers quite rightly. There are many other premises that are going to be much more attractive to somebody who wishes to buy cheap alcohol to drink where they shouldn't be drinking it, councillors. The nature of the products, the nature of the stores that we have, and also the price point of many of the products are such that it's not going to be attractive to street drinkers. I can never guarantee they won't try and go in. They would stick out like a sore thumb, rather, councillors, but it is not the sort of premises that they would frequently go to. The conditions that we put forward are on pages 15 and 16, and I know you'll have read it, councillors, but I did just want to highlight some on page 16. So on 16 of your agenda, all sales of alcohol for consumption off the premises must be in sealed containers and won't be consumed on the premises. Number 2, as I've said, any alcohol for consumption on the premises is restricted to guided masterclass or tasting sessions. Now, these are also restricted from, they would only take place between 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. These are masterclasses. The cheapest really start at about £30. It's where an expert will take you through a particular product, normally wine. Not always. It can last for an hour and a half or so, and you taste a variety of wines in small sample sizes. But it's not when not going to be an occasion when you're going to binge drink, councillors. It will be the equivalent of a couple of glasses of regular wine that you would end up actually drinking as part of the tasting session. So it's fine wine. On the website, the last one that they were able to do was of course they're doing them via Teams themselves. So you're doing remote wine tasting sessions, and the last one was a Malbec, which I think it was £35 to attend that. And they would do a maximum of 2 of these a week, councillors, in terms of the tasting sessions. We have had one representation from Teresa Hastings, which has been highlighted. We did, after the representations which were received right to the council, and you were kind enough to forward our email of the 19th of May on to those who made representations. That's on page 23. And that council also explains a bit more about the products that they provide at paragraph 3 on page 23. So that email was sent on to those making representations. And yes, the Councillor Press then did withdraw her objection as a result. But to be absolutely clear, councillors, there's no application here being made for a tables and chairs licence outside. If we wanted tables and chairs here, we'd have to make a separate application, which would be advertised and consulted on, and of course people can put representations in. But of course there's already a condition offered on page 16, councillors, which restricts any alcohol that's being sold anyway for consumption off the premises to a sealed container. So you couldn't just take a drink outside and sit at a chair and table outside anyway without us varying the premises licence if you were minded to grant the application today. So to be absolutely clear, this has got nothing to do with tables and chairs, which was the first limb of Teresa Hastings' representation. And then her second limb was about the PSPA, which I understand in terms of alcohol as opposed to street entertainment or buskers or cars, that the alcohol does apply across the whole of the London Borough. But again, I stress that alcohol is sold in sealed containers, and that the range and price point of the products is not going to be attractive to street drinkers. Clearly, Environmental Health and Police had a look at this application. And the beauty is we do already have a store that has now opened on Old Brompton Road. We do have a history of trade, obviously, within the areas which are also covered by the Metropolitan Police. Your solicitor, Lindsay, did, thank you, send over some additional conditions, and I'm sure we can have a chat about those later, councillors, after your questions. We're happy to accept those, some of which I think do so by adopting some of the conditions that are being offered. So, for instance, our condition 2 would get subsumed into the proposed condition number 1 in terms of staff members being conversant with the CCTV. Our proposed condition number 8 would get subsumed into your proposed condition number 7. The only 2 conditions which I would ask you to consider, and which I don't feel are proportionate or appropriate in this circumstance for these particular premises, and of course they should be done on a premises by premises basis, would be conditions 13 and 14, and that's providing a dedicated telephone number for the DPS. I'll just let that catch up. So it's conditions 13 and 14, which is on page 3 of the draft conditions done by legal. So that is a dedicated telephone number for the DPS being made available, and residential meetings, residents' meetings being held twice a year. We've received one residential representation to this application, councillors, and we're not putting tables and chairs outside. It is an off licence, and the only element, and it's a high-end off licence at that with specialty products, the only element of on sales are for masterclasses and tasting sessions, and we're quite happy to agree Lindsay's proposed condition amendment to condition 4. If you could just take the slide up for me, whoever's controlling it. And the proposed condition 4 that Lindsay made some changes to is that any sale of alcohol for consumption on the premises is restricted to sales at pre-booked guided masterclasses or tasting sessions. So we're quite happy to agree with the amendment made to that condition. So for the avoidance of doubt, the on sales at the tasting masterclasses, those would have to be pre-booked councillors as opposed to people just walking off the street to take part in them. That's it, councillors. I've got that as 9 minutes, so I've just kept under the 10. So any question? Do you have any questions, councillors?
Mr. Smith, thank you very much indeed. 9 minutes, very good. So, Councillor Mason, do you have any questions?
Sorry, I thought you were going first, Chair.
No, I'll let you. I do have 1 or 2 questions and comments, but I'll let the committee, the members speak first, and maybe they'll ask my question then.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Morning, Jonathan. Thank you. You've got 7 other premises, so you'll probably have a ready answer to the question I'm going to ask, which I usually ask all applicants, which is about we agree a mass of conditions and we agree a license, or you agree a license, and then the question is, how do you transport that into the operation by the staff of the license? Because quite often licensees fall down, not because they haven't agreed good conditions, but because the management structure and the dispersal policies and so on at the premises are not. No one is allotted to take care of them, and there's quite often large staff turnover, and those staff are not trained, or they're not retrained, or an officer comes along at 15 minutes after a terminal hour for something and finds something happening, and then we start the ball rolling towards complaints and so on. So the question really is, how will you operate the management policy to make sure that your staff adhere, carry out the licensing objectives on your behalf, and if there is a dispersal problem, or may or may not be, how you deal with that. And then you mentioned the condition 13, the dedicated telephone number. Quite often that's been suggested in other licenses because it sometimes heads off complaints to the council by disgruntled residents. Sometimes they can just talk to the DPS on the night and resolve the problem, or they've got someone to talk to. So I hear what you say about the dedicated telephone number, but it's because residents quite often said, I mean, it may not apply to your premises, but residents used to quite often say, well, we had no contact with the premises, or the people on the door wouldn't talk to us, or because of course doormen, or if you've got doormen or staff, they're not there to be dealing with local residents, but they don't understand that. So this telephone number was that you could head off problems by having someone. I can phone you as a DPS up and say, listen, there's a problem here, and you might deal with it, etc. So really, it's about the operation of the premises, how you're going to how you're going to make that work, and how do you make it work in your other premises? Because you must have management policies in place. How do you train your staff? How do you retrain your staff? How do you deal with the fact that there'll be staff turnover? It's just going to happen, and the dedicated telephone number issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm sure you've asked me the same question before, actually, on a previous hearing I dealt with.
I probably have. I'm sure I have, but this is a new hearing.
I know. Councillor Mason, I've got Rodrigo on the phone, but I mean, the beauty with Rodrigo, who's on the phone, he is actually, whilst he's the DPS for this store, what they do very sensibly is Rodrigo is the store's general manager. So he, if you like, is a mini area manager. So he covers, as an operations manager, all of the stores. Now, Rodrigo will be the designated premises supervisor here whilst the store opens. And what the plan is, they will have a general manager who is recruited, who will then get a personal license and who will then go on to this license. That person and the staff here are trained by Rodrigo as the store is just freshly opening. Now, the beauty here is it is a family-run company, Councillor Mason, just to stress. So whilst we've got eight stores isn't too many, but Rodrigo is the gentleman who's responsible for all of the stores. So he will hand this store over to the general manager with the conditions, make sure they're all read, and he goes through them all. And I asked Rodrigo this question about who actually controls the training and who does the training for the staff. And that will be Rodrigo initially as the store's general manager when it opens, and then handed down to the designated premises supervisor, of course, who's got the personal license. But it's a small enough company, councillors, that you're able to control things nicely, so that if you have a DPS change, which is what you're talking about, of course, Councillor Mason, you want to make sure the new DPS coming in is fully au fait with the conditions, and Rodrigo will handle that. But I'll ask Rodrigo to answer that one in a minute. Just on the telephone helpline, I take your point if this was a bar, Councillor Mason, and there might be dispersal issues. This is, in all effects, an off licence. The only reason we want on sales, and it's quite strictly controlled by Condition 4, is for these £30 plus masterclasses, tasting sessions with an expert, which is typically wine. So that there's going to be restricted numbers doing that for obvious reasons, because you do it at the back of the store, and I would suspect we won't be getting dispersal issues. Bear in mind, we have to close, the latest they would finish anyway would be 10 o'clock under the licence, Councillor Mason, because on sales are restricted to 10 o'clock. Now, I don't imagine a normal off licence, unless it was heavily objected to, you may have issues with residents wanting to speak to a DPS about dispersal if it was a pure off licence. It's simply we're doing on licence here for these taster sessions, and I wouldn't expect residents to be complaining about the dispersal of people having been to a masterclass at the latest at 10 o'clock at night. I can never guarantee it, Councillor Mason, but obviously we've got to look at what's proportionate. Listen, we're not precious about it. If you would like that condition, I think we're more concerned about arranging residents meetings when we wouldn't know who to actually ask, because we haven't had many residents object to the application. But Rodrigo, do you want to answer the question more particularly about who does the training and how you make sure when new management go in as a DPS that they are fully aware of the terms and conditions of the licenses, Rodrigo?
Yeah, sure. So firstly, I know that the rotation in retail usually is very fast and dynamic, but in Amatus we have, like most of our managers are there for more than 2 years already. The people from inside the company is very well trained, and they usually go up to become a manager or assistant manager. So like South Kensington, the manager there, the shop is open only 2 months ago, but the shop is there, the manager was 1 year and a half working in Soho shop as assistant manager to learn all the rules. We have a very strict guideline with a manual for managers and the employees guide. I personally take any new employee and stay with them a few weeks to make sure that everything is done properly and following the rules. And we take very seriously the procedures and the legal aspects. So anything that goes a little bit out of what we expect and what we instruct, we straight away we show the person that this will not be tolerable. So in this case, in Notting Hill, I will be there until I see that the person who is managing the shop will be completely aware about everything to run the shop, how the same way that we think that's the good way. And as Jonathan said, the tastings are definitely not nothing that someone who wants to drink and have a drink too much or something like that will enjoy, because it's very, very technical, talking like 1 hour about wine grapes or soils or something like that. And if you take all the samples, it will be less than two glasses of wine. So it's not something that people. We run a lot of tastings. I never saw anyone there trying to have like a party or something like that. So I saw about complaining about music and the stuff. We don't have any loud music. Like we play like classic jazz or classic music, very not loud. So this will not be a problem. The shop will be a benefit for the residents that want to have a wine for dinner or something more special, more craft to drink at home. Nothing to young people who wants to binge drink like Björn said.
Well, thank you, Rodrigo. It's good to hear. And especially when you've got eventually different. You're responsible for 7 or 8 stores. It's important. I know you know this. It's important that you make sure the link is not broken if you have different people managing the premises. That they do what you do because it's a business line. You do not want to be up in front of committees and so on because somebody the staff were not aware of what they ought to be doing to cover the licensing conditions. So it's good to hear. And we shall see how this works out, obviously, in practice. Thank you.
Welcome.
Dori, you're muted.
Thank you. I turned it off. But anyway, thank you. Before I call on Councillor, I'd like to make a couple of comments on the rest. Of course, also the detail from Mr. Mamana and Mr. Smith about how it's going to be, and about the conditions 13 and 14, which we'll get to later. But in general, lack of objections is no guide to the future. Discuss that later, as I said. Regarding a dedicated phone number, nobody says it'll be used every day. So if these events are always very quiet and there's no dispersal issue, then of course the number will never get used. So I don't really see why there's a problem in having this number. But again, we'll come to that later when we discuss conditions. Councillor Addenbrooke, your comments or questions, please, if any.
Well, really, it was actually about condition 14, because I think, this is not a straightforward off licence. You are going to be holding masterclasses. So I think any engagement with local residents and residents associations is really important. I think by doing that, you can avoid any unnecessary issues, further down the line. So I would ask that you reconsider that point.
Mr. Smith?
Councillors, yes. I mean, we're not precious. It's obviously entirely in your discretion. I would just ask you to consider in light of the operation we are running here. But yes, Councillor, we would be happy to accept that if you saw it appropriate to put it on. We're not going to kick up a fuss and jump up and down about it.
Thanks. Councillor Addenbrooke, any other queries?
Not at this point.
Thank you. So now I'd like to put some points and maybe ask a question or two. In regard to the presentation of the case by Mr. Smith, yes, it's very nice that you have relatively pricey drinks and so on, and you keep out the street drinkers, as you put it. However, people who can afford to buy these drinks and pay for the classes don't necessarily behave any different. And we also have to bear in mind a little bit how these premises may change, either with the present or a future operator. With changes in planning rules, a number of changes can now be without planning permission. So you could just change, if the premises go well, they may decide to make a bar out of it and so on. We don't know that. Although the bar itself may actually require planning permission, but you know what I mean. Planning rules have changed already. So that's the remark. Now, your opening hours are shorter than your licensing hours. At least, just curious, why is that?
I think they're the same, Councillor. I think that they are from 10 o'clock, the hours for opening, through till 11 p.m. For opening and also off sales, councillors.
Maybe I've looked at the. Maybe I'm confusing it with the
it's the on sales for the tasting sessions, Councillor, that are shorter, just 11 till 10.
Right. Thank you very much for clarifying that. Well, I think that's it, really. It's the discussion about conditions 13, 14, and maybe one or two others. So we'll come to that. I suppose that because there's no objector, we can just go now to the stage of the Missouri putting forward the proposed conditions.
Councillor, could I just come back on your comment just to give you some peace of mind about they could just become a bar? You don't need planning permission. Yeah. Of course, these premises couldn't just become a bar because there is a condition on the licence that on sales, so sale of alcohol for consumption on the premises, are only part of a masterclass or a tasting session. So you'd have to be a bar which was only doing masterclasses or tasting sessions, Councillor. So any application would have to come back to you for a full bar operation to remove that condition.
True. If that's part of the condition, then you have a very good point. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you.
Are you wanting me to interject at this
Mr.
point,
Missouri?
Councillor?
Yes, please. I think I don't think. I mean, there's anyone has any questions or points to make? Please say now. Otherwise, we'll go to the conditions. I think the councillors don't have any further questions, and nor does the applicant. So, Mr. Missouri, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Smith.
Good morning.
Good morning. Right, we've got the conditions on the screen, and I think the first part, conditions 1 to 9, they were your conditions, but I've just tweaked them in red. So if I just read out the number, and if you could say whether you're happy or not. So in relation to condition 1, my red condition, are you happy with that?
Yes.
Thank you. Condition 2 was subsumed into condition 1. Condition 3, I didn't make any changes, so I presume you're happy with that because that was your condition. You've already said you were happy with my red words with condition 4, I believe.
I am. Yeah.
Condition 5, no changes. That was your condition, so you're happy. You've conditioned the on sales between 11 and 10, but I was going to put it on the front of the licence rather than have it as a condition. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, as long as it appears somewhere, that's fine.
Yeah, brilliant. Are you happy with my suggested wording for condition 7?
I am.
8?
Yes.
Thank you. 9?
Yes.
Thank you. Right, 10, you've already agreed with the police, so I haven't got any changes. Now, turning to 11, this is one thing I don't know whether the councillors want to think about. So condition 11 relates to on sales. So are you happy for your on sales to end at 10 and for the on sales customers to be off the premises by 10:30, although you don't close until 11?
Yes, we are happy with that.
Okay, fine, thank you. Number 12, are you happy with the incident log condition?
Sorry, Ms. Lindsay, I just want to ask, how do we distinguish between on sales and off sale customers after 2000?
Well, we would know. There's not many people attend these tasting sessions, and they will be asked to leave after the tasting session, which can't finish any later than 10 o'clock. Councillors, it'll be very easy for us to tell. We don't have hundreds and hundreds by any means. We'll know exactly who's there, and they'll be asked to leave by 10:30. So,
but understood. Of course, you can identify who they are, but if they wish to stay behind and buy something they've just tasted, that they'll become off sales clients.
But they will.
We don't know. I mean, sorry, you can't expect them to immediately go to the counter. I mean, they might stand around for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, maybe chatting to each other, and then they decide to buy something, or maybe they're discussing purchasing one or two of the products that they've just tasted. Presumably, that's part of the objective anyway of these classes.
Well, they'd have half an hour to do that after the tasting session had finished, so they've got half an hour to buy the products and leave, councillors.
Okay, if you're happy with that, it's fine.
Yeah,
okay,
we are.
Just explore that. By the way, this broadcast is, of course, recorded, so we can always get back to it if necessary.
Thank you. Are we ready to go on to number 12? I think you said you were. Did you say you're happy with 12, the logbook?
The only thing I wonder, Lindsay, is whether 12F, are we duplicating that because we've already got a refusals register referred to earlier? That was my only observation for you.
where was that referred to? Which condition
So
was that?
12F is any refusal of the sale of alcohol, because we've already dealt with the refusal for the sale of alcohol at condition 9. We've got a full record, haven't we? I just wondered whether we're duplicating it, having it in an incident book, and also where we've got a daily log being kept of any alcohol sales refusals.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, perhaps delete that one.
Otherwise, yeah. Otherwise, very happy. Yep.
Okay, so conditions 13 and 14, you said initially that you weren't happy with, but you're in the hands of the committee.
Sorry, forgive me for intervening again. In 9, it just says refusal of alcohol, but in 12, there's a lot more to it. Are you suggesting leaving one of the items out of 12, or are you dropping 12 together?
It was 12F, just 12F, which is the refusal of the sale of alcohol going into the daily. Yeah, it's just 12F.
Okay, I agree with that. Okay, fine.
Thank you. Okay, 13 and 14, I think you ultimately said you were happy to be in the hands of the committee. Is that still the case?
Yes, I've taken instructions, and if the committee felt it appropriate, we're happy to agree that those can go on the licence.
Okay, so in relation to 14, if the councillors are minded to put it on the licence, are you happy with 2 times per year?
Yes.
And I'm not. I mean, obviously, there's the bit about the residents of XXX, but obviously, we haven't really, apart from the objector in Talbot Road, we haven't had any local objectors, so we may not need that wording in there. But obviously, the councillors can discuss that. Is that okay, councillor?
We would. Yeah, we would, but we would obviously put a geographic limit on that and decide, so many doors left and right. We'd have to look at a map, a few doors left and right.
Okay.
And a few doors opposite, that kind of thing. Otherwise, of course, it's unreasonable to put that in. So we'd have to define the geographic area, which is reasonable, proportionate. And I think we discussed maybe putting, no, sorry, that's it. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. So 15, were you happy with?
Yes.
Right, 16 and 17, I think the last sentence of 17, staff shall receive refresher training, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to tag it on to 16, just so that it's together. Are you happy with both those conditions and me just struggling a bit?
That makes sense, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
18?
Possibly amalgamating the two in some form, if we think it's better.
Okay. 18?
Yes, happy.
19, I wasn't too sure if you're going to have a delivery service from the
we may have occasions when somebody might order something through a delivery driver and then they pick it up and take it, but it's not the main source of the business by any means. But yes, we're happy to have a policy.
Thank you. 20?
Yes.
Right, 21, 22, 23.
Yes, and we're happy with those times 0700. Which in square.
24?
Yes, very happy.
You don't mind if we turn them around and make them positive. The rubbish can only be deposited between 7 and 2300, that sort of thing.
Yeah, happy.
Okay.
Thanks.
25?
Yes.
And the only other one which I think we kind of had to think about, I just want your view on this. It's just about drinking water being available. So would you be willing to have a condition, non-alcoholic beverages, including drinking water, shall be available to customers throughout the permitted hours for the sale of alcohol on the premises? So for your master classes.
Can I just take instructions on that?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they'll have tap water, which obviously is a statutory requirement. I don't know whether they'd have orange juice or anything like that during master classes. Can I just take some instructions? Appreciate it's not the difficult councils. I've got to just WhatsApp my client. Is that all right?
Hello, we saw during the master classes we have water because between wines you need to clean the palate. So it's common to have just still water or sparkling water. It's the only soft drinks that we have here.
So I guess it's still water or sparkling water. So I guess to answer your question, it would be, yes, there would be non-alcoholic drinks available during tasting sessions. To answer the question.
Thank you. So that was the last of my conditions. Councillors, has anything else cropped up that you think might need to be conditioned? want to discuss?
Not from my point of view. Colleagues?
Nothing springs to mind. I think you've covered everything.
Yeah, I think you've covered everything.
That's me done then. Thank you.
Right. Bear with me a second. Licensing officers, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Chair. Just one point of clarity. Based on one of the conditions that 30 minutes after the on sale cease, everyone will be off the premises. Am I to understand that the application has been reduced from what was originally sought from 23 to 22:30?
That would just be those who are having on sales, I believe. Is that Paul? So
yes,
just, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you for that clarity, Chair.
Sorry, can I just clarify? We're not changing the on sales times, are we? They're staying at. Sorry, where's my bit of paper? So the on sales are still going to end at 10, and it's just they're going to be off the premises by 10:30. Is that correct?
Yeah, so anybody who's been doing a masterclass or a tasting will be off by 10:30, correct?
Okay, nothing.
May I suggest that we actually separate out the on sales and off sales hours, just put make them two separate line items. Won't change anything, but it just makes it clearer.
I have done that on the draft summary decision.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
And did you want to consider opening hours or anything like that? Councillor Addenbrook, anyone else?
Yes, we were talking about whether it's necessary to have 2300 hours on a Sunday.
So is that a question? Is that a question?
That's a question.
I'm sorry. Can I just take instructions?
Would you consider 2200, for example?
Can I just take instructions again? Rodrigo, I'm just sending you a WhatsApp rather than.
Yes, regarding Sunday, all shops that we close very early in Sundays, and there's no events on Sunday, so tastings, this kind of events.
So Rodrigo, you wouldn't have a tasting session on a Sunday then, because that would then cause you potential problems. If you had one at 8:30, that might cause a difficulty at closing it at 10.
Yes, we don't do events on Sundays. We never did in any shop until now, and there's no reason to start to do that.
So by the sound of it, councillors, yes, we'd be happy for you to restrict it to 2200 on Sundays.
Thank you very
much. Okay, so that would apply to the off sales as well, 2200.
Yes, it would. Yeah.
So that would be off sales and closing time on Sundays only.
Correct.
Thank you. Anything else, councillors?
Not from my point of view. Councillor Addenbrook?
Nothing more from me.
Okay, do the governance officers have any comments, suggestions?
Nothing from me, Chair, thank you.
Right, well, I think we've reached the end of the meeting. Ms. Lemuzurier, sure, no other questions, all clear?
All clear from me, thank you.
Right, well, clearly we have all the information we need and we'll retire to make our decision in private session. As mentioned, the decision will not be announced today. Instead, the hearing on this application will be closed and the live broadcast will end. A summary of the decision will be sent to the parties within 5 working days of today's hearing, and a full decision will follow as soon as possible thereafter. Thank you for attending, and this hearing is now closed.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.